Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video we're going to be doing a newlywed Christian wife Q&A. So I put a little box on Instagram for you guys to submit questions that I'm going to be answering today. And let me just say, y'all asked some juicy questions, and so we're going to get to that. My heart with my content really since the beginning of this YouTube channel, and even before that when I first started my blog, my heart has always been to share the things that God is teaching me in whatever season He has me in. And so whether that was in singleness or now in marriage, that is my heart and my goal. And how I sort of divide up my content is that I will share the things that I'm learning as I study God's word, which I do through all the different types of Bible study videos that I do. But then I also share the things I'm learning again in whatever season or circumstance that I'm currently in, and how God's word speaks to those things. And I aim to really always give that biblical perspective. And none of that is changing. I'm still going to have my Bible study videos and also some of the more lifestyle videos. And I will continue to make videos on singleness from time to time, but I am also going to make videos on marriage and just the things I'm learning as I step into this new season. And so my heart and my hope with these videos is that whether or not this is the season that you're in as well, that these would encourage you and that ultimately they would glorify God and really point to His design and His purpose in each of these various seasons. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the questions. First question, are you guys already planning on having children, or do you still want to wait a bit? So I feel like this is the question everybody gets when they get married. And going into marriage, Tyler and I knew that we didn't want to wait super long to have kids, but we also knew that we did want to give ourselves some time of it just being the two of us. And so as for an exact timeline of what that's going to look like or when that will be, we're not exactly sure yet, so we'll see. But we also know that this is very much in God's hands. I have friends who got pregnant a lot sooner than they were planning to once they got married. And then on the other side of the spectrum, friends who it took a lot longer than they anticipated to get pregnant, or friends who dealt with loss. And so we know that this is very much in God's hands. So we'll see what happens. Thoughts on birth control. So I'm so glad you asked, and I'm so excited to tell you about Natural Cycles. They're actually sponsoring this portion of today's video. So I knew I was gonna get this question because I feel like everybody gets this question, and I actually reached out to Natural Cycles to see if they would want to work with me on today's video because they're what I've been using since a couple months before the wedding, and I absolutely love them. So Natural Cycles is the first FDA cleared birth control app, and they're actually also CE marked in Europe. And since it's an app, it is 100% natural, meaning that there are no hormones. So basically, leading up to the wedding, as I was figuring out what I was going to do, I knew that I didn't want to do any sort of hormonal birth control. And the reason for that is simply just that I tend to lean more natural on things when possible. And also, like I mentioned, we knew that we didn't want to wait years and years to have kids. And depending on the type of hormonal birth control you use, it can take a while to clear itself out of your body. For me, it didn't feel worth it to start taking something like that and then only to have to start clearing it out of my body. And then also just with a lot of my friends who got married before me, I feel like almost every single one of them who went on some form of hormonal birth control at some point had to get off of it because of just various effects they noticed, whether that was their emotions or sex drive or any various number of other things. And for some of them, they were fine right away and then noticed those effects later. And for some, the effects were pretty immediate. And so just knowing those things and seeing friends go through those experiences, I just really honestly didn't want to deal with any of that. And so I knew I was looking for a non-hormonal option, but I didn't really know what my options were. And so I was actually talking to my cousin over the summer, and she was the one to tell me about Natural Cycles. And how it works is that it uses an algorithm that takes your basal body temperature. So that's the temperature that you take first thing in the morning when you wake up before you get out of bed or go to the bathroom or anything. But it uses your basal body temperature and other fertility indicators to basically determine your fertility status each day. So first thing in the morning, you take your temperature and then you input that temperature into the app, and then it tells you if that day is a green day, meaning you're not fertile and you're good to go, or if that day is a red day, meaning that there is the potential for you to be fertile and you need to use some other form of protection. And so Natural Cycles is commonly used as a birth control app to prevent pregnancy, but it can also be used to plan pregnancy faster when that time comes, because again, the longer you're using the app and the more data it's collecting, the more it is narrowing in on what your fertile days are. And so the cousin who told me about the app was telling me that she actually used the app for 2 years to prevent pregnancy, but then when her and her husband decided they didn't want to prevent anymore, she actually got pregnant that very first month. So Natural Cycles is 93% effective with typical use and 98% effective with perfect use, which means again, you're not having unprotected sex on those red days. I've really enjoyed learning more about my body and just getting more in tune with my cycle, and for that reason, I think it can be beneficial even if you're not maybe needing birth control, just because as women, our cycles are such a key indicator of potentially other health things going on in our bodies, and our cycles give us a lot of information, and so I think the more aware we can be and just in tune with what's going on, the better. Clearly, I can't recommend Natural Cycles enough, and so if you want to check them out, you can use my code Kaci at naturalcycles.com to get 20% off your annual subscription to the app, and then that code will also get you a free thermometer, and so I'm gonna have that link and the code and all the information linked down below. I love getting to work with brands that I personally use and believe in, and then getting to share that with you guys, and then as you guys get to discover those and love them too, that's a blessing for me in continuing to get to work with brands like this. And so this is truly such an answered prayer. Since making the decision not to use hormonal birth control, I've actually been learning a lot about hormonal birth control and just the origins and the impacts of it on our bodies, and it's made me so thankful that I decided not to use it. And obviously this is a very personal decision, and each person needs to make the best decision for themselves, but I think it's really important to just have all the information around it so that in order to make that decision you can have true informed consent. And so I highly recommend listening to this podcast. I'll have it up here on the screen and linked down below. It really goes into, again, the origins of hormonal birth control and how it works and just the long-term effects on our bodies. And so I highly recommend checking that out if you're trying to figure out what's going to be the best option for you, and if something like natural or non-hormonal birth control might be a better fit. Next is, did you have a bachelorette party? And if yes, how did you do it in a God-honoring Christian way? So yes, I did have a bachelorette party and it was so much fun. I actually made a vlog about it, so I'll have it linked over here if you want to check it out. But I just want to say that bachelorette parties don't need to be like drunken nights and strip clubs. I see it as a beautiful time of celebrating with the friends who have walked through the wait with you and who are now going to continue to walk with you in the new season of marriage and point you to God in it. And so for us, that meant that we went hiking, we went dancing, we did karaoke, we had a time of my bridesmaids just sharing what I meant to them and speaking life into me and praying over me, which was so special and so meaningful to me because I'm such a words girl. And so honestly, it was just a really fun weekend where they made me feel very celebrated and very loved. How have you kept the excitement of wedding season in your marriage? So I feel like a lot of people talk about the wedding letdown or the post-wedding blues, and that's not something that I really experienced, only because, as I've kind of shared on the channel, life was so busy for us after the wedding, from like the honeymoon to Christmas to traveling for Christmas to just all the things. And so I feel like I didn't even really have a chance to feel that sense of letdown. But I will say that this week, as I'm filming this video, I did just post our wedding video, which was sort of like the final thing in all of the wedding, in like wrapping up all of the wedding things. And I did have a moment where I had just that twinge of like, oh, it's all over. And so I felt a little bit of that. A couple things about this question. One, I don't think excitement in and of itself can be the goal, in the sense that we are seeking this constant emotional high, because emotions are fickle and most of life isn't going to be, you know, like these mountaintop moments like getting married. A lot of life is what we would consider mundane, you know, just like doing laundry, unloading the dishwasher, paying bills, working. But I think that we can choose to find contentment and joy in those things. And as for marriage, I think that the deeper sense of excitement comes from a sense of purpose in knowing that our marriage is about something something bigger than just the two of us, that it is about making us both look more like Jesus. It is about glorifying God and building his kingdom. And so I think that, you know, we find excitement and joy in just the day-to-day things like I kind of shared in our morning routine video, but then also in dreaming and praying about how God is going to use us to build his kingdom here on earth and seeking out opportunities to do that in our day-to-day lives. And so I feel like those are the conversations that get us really excited and just also really connect us as well. Next is, how did you adapt to share your space, and what's the biggest thing you've had to adjust in living together? So practically, in terms of how I had to adapt to share my space, it looked like cleaning out the closet to create room for him and making a home for all of his belongings. But honestly, we're kind of still in that process of getting settled. We haven't finished the second room still, and we haven't really decorated other than we just put up those pictures above our bed. I'll do a little B-roll clip so you can see. But we haven't done a lot of that decorating, and so we're still kind of getting settled. And I feel like there haven't been a lot of huge adjustments. Like I shared in one of my Q&As, we kind of joke about the hangers, how I have all the black velvet hangers and he had all the plastic hangers. And so that was like quirks like that we just had to learn of each other's. But honestly, it's felt pretty seamless. We did talk about a lot of those things in premarital, which I think was a huge help. But I think it also really helps that we have pretty similar living styles, just as far as the fact that we're both pretty clean and organized. Tyler actually said something about that in his vows if you watched the wedding video. And so I feel like it has been kind of easier than I thought it would be. Can you talk about how you and Tyler handle household responsibilities and chores? Okay, so generally I feel like he does things like taking out the trash, hanging things up on our walls, or fixing things when they're broken, killing spiders because I don't want to do that. And then I tend to do a lot of the grocery shopping, cleaning, and laundry just because I work at home, and so I have the flexibility where I can, you know, run a load of laundry as I'm working. And then I also do tend to do more of the cooking as well. But if we're making a dish, like let's just say a steak with potatoes and veggies, he'll usually cook the meat and then I'll take care of the sides. And so that's generally how we've split things so far, but these aren't like firm rules. We both tend to just like jump in wherever we see a need. And so like if there's a morning I know he has a really busy morning at work, I'll say like, don't touch any of the dishes, I'll take care of them. And then there's mornings where he'll say the same thing to me if he knows I've got a pretty full day. And so I feel like we're both pretty willing to do the things that need to be done. And I feel like for me though, something I've noticed is that it's strangely been an adjustment for me to accept his help in those things. I just really love taking care of our home and sort of doing all of the homemaking things. And so sometimes I just want to do all the things, but when I can't, I've noticed that I sometimes feel a little guilty in letting him share the load, which I shouldn't. That's nothing that he's ever put on me. If anything, I think it's maybe an unrealistic expectation I put on myself that I want to be able to do it all, but I can't. And so that's just kind of an interesting realization that I've had. Need a little water break. Okay, how do you handle your finances together, including budgeting, saving, etc.? And honestly, we are still figuring that out. I am currently in the process of changing my name legally so that we can officially merge all of like our bank accounts and stuff like that with the correct names and everything on it. But let me just say that it is a process. There is a lot that goes into that and a lot of different forms. And then especially for me having not only my personal accounts, but also my business accounts, there's just a lot that needs to be done there that we're just working our way through. We do obviously have full access to and knowledge of all of each other's financial information and also a general idea of our budget and our saving goals. But I am very excited to get everything officially merged so that we can sit down and make a much more detailed budget and think through our saving goals and all of that, because I think it's super exciting to have those shared financial goals as a family. Being married now, we do very much see it not as his money versus my money, but our money. And so I'm really excited to get everything officially organized to reflect that. Studies to prepare to be a good Christian wife / what to look for in a good Christian man. So I actually have videos on both of these things. I have a video on what to look for in a Christian man, sort of those biblical qualities, and then a separate video on qualities to cultivate as Christian women, and this can apply whether you're single or married. So I'll have those linked down in the description. Next is a surprising thing about marriage you didn't expect. It can be good or bad. So I feel like I don't have something super profound to say here, but honestly, the thing that comes to mind and the thing that Tyler and I have actually both really felt is we were surprised at how quickly it felt so normal in the best possible way. I feel like leading up to the wedding, you can't really wrap your mind around trying to imagine what being married is gonna be like because you've never experienced it before. And so I just didn't know if it was gonna feel like this totally new, different thing. And I was surprised again at just how quickly it felt very normal. And so if you're married, comment down below letting me know if you experienced that as well, or if there was something else surprising about marriage that you didn't expect. Do you have advice for finding community as a newlywed? So yes, and it is the same advice I would give to someone who's single, and it is to get plugged in to your local church and to start serving. I think that getting into a small group or serving, both of those things are great ways to move beyond merely being an attendee of that church, but also beginning to know and be known by people in your community. And so I think specifically for newlyweds, if you're able to serve together in some way, I think that really helps contribute to that sense I was talking about before of purpose in your marriage, that it's about something bigger than just the two of you, and it gives you that sense of shared purpose. So Tyler and I, like I said, we serve in our high school youth group at church, and a couple weeks back we spoke in the relationship series on boundaries for dating, and afterwards we just felt so pumped. We felt not only such a sense of purpose, but so connected in doing that together, and it honestly made us realize just how much we love getting to speak, getting to create, getting to do really any form of ministry together. And so that's led us to just pray for more opportunities to do that, but also for God to open our eyes to how He wants us to do that in the day-to-day. Next is, how did you two prepare mentally and spiritually for the physical relationship changes? I think the biggest thing here is having an appropriate perspective on the physical aspect of relationships. Just understanding that God created it, it is good, but He created it for a particular context. And so we talked a lot more about this in our videos that we did on physical boundaries, and also the video that I just did on the untold truth of saving yourself for marriage. And so I won't go into a lot of detail here, but yeah, just having that appropriate perspective. And I think practically also just talking through expectations and setting the expectation that there is an open line of communication about all those things. Final question, how to balance being in love with your spouse while also keeping God first? And then another person asked a similar question of, do you feel your alone time with God has reduced since being married? And honestly, this has been a challenge. I feel like in singleness, like I've talked about before, you have the good days where maybe you're feeling really content, and then the hard days where you really feel that longing and just that discouragement. And for me, those hard stretches were always the times that I feel like I really pressed desperately into God. And while it's obviously not fun to feel that longing or to feel that pain, I do think that in that you experience an intimacy with Jesus that you don't feel maybe as tangibly when things in life are good. And this season of life has felt good. This has been a season of life where I feel like for the most part, I felt content. And that's not to say that things obviously have been perfect or that there haven't been hard things that have come up, but overall I felt a lot of contentment. And I feel like for most of my 20s, there always felt like there was some big pressing prayer, whether it was a prayer for God to bring my husband into my life or prayers about just various different things that I was going through. And I feel like in this specific season, I don't really have that. There are, pain points or things that I'm praying for, but nothing that feels so consuming. And again, that consuming feeling isn't fun, but I do really think that there's such a depth of intimacy with Jesus in it. I think about Psalm 34:8 that says that God is near to the brokenhearted. He's always near to us. He's always with us. But I think that we sense that nearness in a special way in times of difficulty. And so it has been challenging and just a bit of a learning process, but I've just been trying to rely not just on feelings to drive me closer to God, but on discipline, because again, our feelings are going to ebb and flow, but just continuing to seek Him on the days I feel that and on the days that I don't. And then yeah, the other part of this question is I think that in marriage you do have this constant companionship that you know, Tyler is always there for me to be able to share the things on my heart and my mind and to hear what's on his heart and his mind. And I feel like having that, you don't have that constant reminder to go to God with all of those things, at least that I feel like I had when I didn't have that constant companionship. But there is also this really beautiful reality of marriage that as I'm going to Tyler with those things and sharing those things with him, and as we're praying through those things, we're taking it to God, we're taking it to him in prayer, and it is this triangular relationship in a sense. But once again, that doesn't replace my personal relationship with Jesus. But again, it has been a learning process. I will say though, this is yet one more reason why it is so important to marry someone who is also seeking Jesus, because having a husband who is consistently doing that, it is an encouragement to me, and even sometimes a gentle conviction of a reminder to put him first, to seek him each and every day, and to not just see my time with him every day, because I feel like that hasn't really been an issue in terms of not having that, but to not see that time as just something to do, but to really press in that time and experience communion with God. And so I guess this is an encouragement to you, even as I encourage and remind my own heart to seek Jesus continually, because he is worth it, and there will never be a joy deeper or sweeter than the joy of intimately knowing and loving him. That is all for questions for today's video. I hope that you enjoyed this. If there are any other videos you would like to see me make, let me know down in the comments below. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.